بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Continuing in our reading of the book حلية طالب العلم, the etiquette of the student of knowledge of Shaykh Bakr Abu Zaid rahimahullah. We stopped last week or the week before that in discussion about zuhud, that the student of knowledge should be one who is aesthetic, one who is not concerned with the worldly life and should be content. And now the author he advises that the student of knowledge should adorn himself or yourself with the splendor of knowledge. Means ilm has a type of beautification, manners, characteristics, qualities, even clothing, which the person should aspire to have, especially if they are serious and sincere in the search of knowledge. So he says, rahimahullah, to adorn yourself with the splendor of knowledge is to have beautiful manners, pious conduct, such as continuous peacefulness, awe, humility, humbleness, adherence to the clear path. By filling one's outer and inner self with these qualities and leaving all the characteristics that oppose them. It was narrated from Ibn Sirin rahimahullah that he said, they, the Salaf, used to learn manners as they would learn knowledge. And it was narrated from Raja bin Haywa rahimahullah that once he said to a man, narrate the hadith and do not narrate to me through a person who is lifeless or a slanderer. Narrated by Al-Khatib in Al-Jami'. And he commented further by saying, so here the author he begins by mentioning the advice about good manners. The student of knowledge should be beautified with good manners. And this is important because the student of knowledge is seeking the best of knowledge. He's seeking the revelation, knowledge in the Quran and Sunnah. And therefore this person needs to have manners which are befitting that. And so here Muhammad ibn Sirin rahimahullah mentioned that the Salaf used to learn manners before they would learn knowledge. Because someone cannot truly be knowledgeable and their manners are not befitting the knowledge which they carry. In fact, they won't be able to guide people towards that knowledge if their manners are poor. And so we take a benefit that the manners are part of the knowledge that we learn. And in that angle, the ulama have written and they advised to study both theoretically and practically to learn about manners. Meaning theoretically they will learn the ahadith and the ayat in the Quran and athar al-salaf about manners. So there's akhlaq and then there's adab, the etiquette. And then practically they will sit in the halaqat al-ilm with mashayikh and ulama and learn from them how they would behave and deal with the people. And so here we take a benefit that it's not befitting the student of knowledge lack this man in this chapter. And then he brings a nice statement from Imam al-Hafiz Khatib al-Baghdadi rahimahullah talking about how the student of knowledge should be. He says it's incumbent upon the seeker of hadith to refrain from play, idle fiddling, and displaying vulgar manners in the gatherings by acting foolishly, giggling, laughing loudly or excessively, and continually joking. For indeed joking is only permissible if it's in a small amount, and if it's occasional and subtle, and the type that does not exceed the boundaries of good manners and the way of knowledge. As for continual joking, and that which is vulgar and foolish, and that which arouses bitter feelings and attracts evil, then it is blameworthy. Excessive joking and laughing degrades your rank and your honor. And so here this statement of Khatib al-Baghdadi, it's actually a powerful statement about the etiquette of student knowledge when in public. As for joking, then he mentions here that it shouldn't be excessive. And this is the correct stance. Of course, when someone is with his close friends, it's a little bit different than when he's in public. But nonetheless, the person should avoid being or joking too much. And here we read from Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah, who advises and discusses this issue by mentioning a benefit where he says that somebody shouldn't be excessive in joking والإكثار منه and doing this a lot, لا سيما عند عامة الناس, especially when with the public and the laity, lay folk. أما عند أصحابك, as for when you're with your companions, your close friends and your relatives, فالأمر أهون, then the affair is a little bit easier. Means it's allowed to be a little bit more joking and more humorous with your close companions, but when public, the student's knowledge should carry himself or herself in a manner which befits the knowledge that they carry. Because if someone sees someone continuously laughing, they will say this person is a joker, they're not serious. And then when masail come up in knowledge-based issues, they're not expected to be able to answer or to know those issues the right way because they don't seem to be people who are serious. So it's very important that in public that the image should be one of restraint, but one with close companions and family, someone it can be a little bit more humorous and lighthearted. And this is important because we differentiate between the two. And then he brings the narration which is ascribed to Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and some describe it to Al-Asma'i rahimahullah, Man akthara min shay'in urifa bihi. That has been said, whoever is excessive in something, that he will become known for it. Now this narration itself is reported by Bayhaqi and Shu'b al-Iman and others, but the narration has some weakness. And they also narrated from Al-Asma'i and Al-Ibana to Kubra of Ibn Battah, likewise it has some weakness. However, as a meaning, it's correct. Man akthara min shay'in urifa bihi. Whoever does something excessively, he'll be known for it. So if someone's always laughing, then it becomes clear to the people in their mind that this is a joker. Or if someone's always reading, they'll say someone's a reader. Or he's always doing something, they'll say this person is known for it. In society, we understand that's how we categorize people, based on what they do. So if someone continuously laughs or jokes, and they're people or a person who has status, some people may not take them seriously because of what they see from them. So it's something to pay attention to. And then Shaykh Bakr says, so avoid these flaws in your gatherings and your speech. And amongst those who are ignorant, he says, there are some that think they are in relaxation in doing this excessively. It was narrated, Ahnaf ibn Qais, rahimahullah, said, preserve your gatherings from the mention of women and food, for indeed I hate the man who describes his private parts in his stomach. Subhanallah. And this is mentioned by Imam Dhahabi and Siyar A'lam Nubala and others. And what's intended obviously is that the discussion should be that which is of benefit, and some things should be avoided altogether. And if someone's talking about desires, then it's not something which is beneficial, especially in gatherings where we should be mentioning Allah and His Messenger, or things of benefit at the very least. And so we see here that speaking of vulgar affairs and obscenities is not befitting for a student of knowledge, a person of deen. And we see the Messenger ﷺ as our best example. When it comes to joking, he was the most moderate. He wasn't someone excessive in joke, but he used to joke. And when he used to joke, the Sahaba, they realized this, as it comes in the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And they say, Ya Rasulullah, even you joke? He said, Na'am, ana amzahum. I also make jokes and have some humor, وَلَكِنْ لَا أَقُولُ إِلَّا حَقًّا. However, I only speak the truth. And that should be our golden principle when we narrate stories and we joke truthful things. We don't tell lies, mubalaghat, excessive exaggerations. And likewise, we shouldn't be speaking about things which are vulgar or things that are inappropriate or things that which will lower the person's standard. It means if we're always talking about things that are like women and food, and then it makes someone look like ashab al-dunya. However, if someone mentions something for benefit, it's different. If something needs to be mentioned or is mas'ala that's important, this is different. And then he says here that it's narrated as well that Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, وَمَنْ تَزَيَّنَ بِمَا لَيْسَ فِيهِ شَانَهُ اللَّهِ مَنْ تَزَيَّنَ بِمَا لَيْسَ فِيهِ شَانَهُ اللَّهِ. Whoever adorns himself with other than that which he possesses, then Allah will disfigure or humiliate him. And this narration, Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, he mentions, but it's based on the hadith that the person who pretends to have that which he doesn't have, كَلَابِسَيْ ثَوْبِ الزُّورِ, it's like someone wearing two false garments. And so what we take from this narration is that you should behave in a manner which is befitting someone's status, and it shouldn't be someone who does something which he is not from them. For example, someone speaking about big issues of knowledge, and really they're not at that level to speak of it, or someone speaking about something which doesn't befit who he really is. So Ibn Qayyim, he discusses this issue and comments upon this narration, that in I'lam Waqi'in, that the person who does this, it's actually ضد ikhlas, it's the opposite of being sincere, because he makes apparent to people that which is not inside of him. And so it's also true that someone pretends to know but he doesn't know, or behaves in a manner that doesn't befit his status. It's a type of humiliation. And so we should be always cautious that we don't perceive ourselves or be representing ourselves in a manner that doesn't represent the knowledge and the person. The author then he moves on saying, adorn yourself with honor. Honor yourself, he said, adorn yourself with honor and that which leads to it, such as good manners, cheerful face, spreading the salam, showing forbearance, hating haughtiness, having self-esteem which is free from tyranny, and being gallant but not for the sake of partisanship, and being fanatic without being patriotic. Therefore avoid the affairs that tarnish your honor, whether it be in your nature, speech, or actions, or indulging in degrading actions or evil habits, such as being conceited, showing off, boastfulness, arrogance, and looking down upon others to be seen in doubtful places. So here we take the benefit that the Talib al-Ilm should have honor. And from that honor includes the way that they behave and the qualities that they have. So for some of the qualities we see are from the Sunnah. Good manners, having a cheerful appearance and face when you meet people. Also spreading the salam, all this is from the Sunnah. Forbearance, not being arrogant. And then also avoiding the affairs which are lowly. For example, being in places which you're not supposed to be in, or having arrogance with you, or conceitedness. So here we see in reality this is connected to the next chapter, which is that Talib al-Ilm should protect himself from the qualities that don't befit manliness nor seeking a student of knowledge. So if someone is arrogant and his knowledge is seeking a knowledge, in reality that's not the quality that Islam or the knowledge teaches. If someone is seen in places which are doubtful and he's someone upon the Sunnah, then that place he's at is not something appropriate. It belittles the knowledge and the person. And the same if someone has qualities which are a weakness or deficiency, even if they are just a few, they can still single him out and make him less than what he is. And that's next to the chapter which he ends, enjoying the masculine qualities. Means having the qualities of muru'ah, the qualities of masculinity, the qualities of a man. And here he says that these qualities include bravery, forthrightness, noble manners, and giving for the sake of good causes, and ambition in men. And then he mentions equally beware of qualities that oppose them, such as being unconfident, impatient, weak in nobility. And indeed they destroy knowledge and cut off the tongue from speaking the truth. And they lead him headlong to his enemies in such a state which they brush the faces of the pious amongst his slaves with their poisons. And so what is muru'ah and what is intended by that? The ulama, they give different definitions, but we mentioned one of them. Imam Nawawi rahimahullah mentions that muru'ah is takhalluq bil khuluq wa amthalihi fi zamanihi wa makanihi. It is to adorn and adopt the qualities and characteristics which are equal or of the noble type in every place and time. Means adorning or adopting the qualities which are appropriate in every time and place. This is muru'ah. So for example, someone he's being brave in times of courage or times to be brave, this is from muru'ah. Someone speaking the truth when it's needed, this is from muru'ah. Others they mentioned is everything that beautifies and adorns someone and avoiding everything that humiliates the person. So some ulama mentioned that definition. But no doubt these qualities of masculinity are qualities we should keep in our mind. And of course, in every time and place, there are certain qualities which are considered noble and suitable. So for example, he's now the author, he mentions the opposite, the things that you shouldn't have. Not being confident, being impatient, being hasty. Those are the qualities of muru'ah. Because a man should have deliberation, he should be serious, he should take his time in deciding something that requires decision. وَالْعَجْلَةُ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ Al-hadith, hastiness is from shaitan. So it's not from the muru'ah to be hasty and impatient. And ajaz, also inability. And so here we pick a benefit. The ulama, they mention many examples of muru'ah. And of course it's cultural dependent. Means depending on where you are. In certain countries a particular etiquette is not considered from the muru'ah of a man. Whereas in another country may be acceptable. If someone takes consideration what the environment decides to be acceptable. So I'll give one example Shaykh Uthaymeen mentions in his other books, like the chewing of gum. And he mentions that in Saudi, for example, in the kingdom, chewing gum is considered from the khawarim muru'ah, the things that destroy the muru'ah. Because it's not known that the people in that country, they chew gum. Whereas in our country here in Canada, this is something people do for different reasons. Some people, they chew the gum because they want to freshen their breath, others because they're bored. And so there's different reasons, but no one's going to say this person is chewing gum. It's a criticism against them in this particular environment. So that's an example of how the muru'ah can change from place to place. But nonetheless, someone should be careful. If something is considered lowly in the society you're in, you don't want to be caught doing it. And that has also to do with the things which people associate with Ahlul Deen, Ahlul Ilm. And so then the Shaykh mentions the next advice, that forsaking the luxury, because it goes hand in hand. So do not be carried away, he says, in comfort and luxury, for asceticism is from Iman. And this is important. This hadith, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentions is the definition or the translation says asceticism. Some they translate it differently, where he says sallallahu alayhi wasallam that al-bada'atu min al-iman. And what is intended by this, the ulama, they mention of different meanings. But one of them is that someone, he should be aesthetic, or at the very least wearing clothes, for example, which are not always new. That's another example of it. Some ulama mentioned that is the definition, what's intended by this. And some they say different. So there's different meanings regarding the hadith. Al-bada'atu min al-iman. But nonetheless, asceticism is from iman. Or some say wearing clothes which are not always the newest, means they're worn out. This is from iman. Nonetheless, Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu was famously have said, so beware of excessive comfort and imitating the appearance of the ajam, the non-Arab, and toughen yourself and roughen up yourself, or roughen yourselves. وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَتَنَعُمْ وَزَيِّ الْعَجَمْ وَتَمْعَدُوا وَخْشَوْشِنُوا. And so this narration of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu is an important narration which he wrote to his companions who are in the Amsar, means the places where the Muslims have recently opened. And he gave them this advice. So beware of excessive comfort. And why is this? Because this type of excessive comfort will weaken the person. And it will lead the person to becoming lazy and to becoming content and comfortable and falling away from ambition and success. It also may lead the person to become deluded. And that's why the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one hadith, نهى عن كثرة الإرفاه ويأمر بالاحتفاء أحيانا. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he prohibited or he forbade excessive luxury, and that he ordered that someone walk barefooted sometimes, or he goes out of his house and his hair is not combed. The man should be in balance. Not always he has to appear that he's wearing the best of clothes and he's always in the best of appearance. There's a balance. And here we take the benefit that excessive comfort is one of the things that the student of knowledge should avoid. It means luxury. For we know before that seeking of knowledge is not just attained by luxury. لا ينال العلم براحة الجسد. The knowledge is not obtained by the comfort of the body. So what happens if someone becomes accustomed to luxury? Then they become lazy and they don't strive. And if you look at the Salaf, you see how they gain knowledge. It was a scraping of the knees and all types of calamities, bankruptcy, you name it. And so that's one great benefit we take, that we shouldn't be people who are excessive in luxury. At the same time, don't be deluded to think that we'll gain knowledge where there's no difficulty. On top of this, it's not haram to have luxury, but it should be balanced. There's another hadith of Mu'adh radiallahu ta'ala anhu where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said a similar point, that he prohibited tana'um, for the servants of Allah are not those who are luxurious. And what's intended is not a prohibition of wealth and money, it's a prohibition of this type of luxury and excessiveness, in that someone becomes accustomed to it. Because the hayat dunya is like this: one day wealthy, one day poor, one day you have, one day you don't. As for someone who's excessively or is accustomed to luxury and excess, he will never be able to return to that point. فَإِنَّ النِّعْمَ لَا تَدُومُ. For the bounty of Allah doesn't always last. It means sometimes you'll have nothing, but if you're always used to it, what's going to happen? And the next advice he gives, imitating the people who are the non-Arab. And what's intended by this is not the non-Arab themselves, but those who are foreigners from the way of Islam. So if it comes another version in Muslim, وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَزَيُّ أَهْلِ الشِّرْكِ, and beware of the adornment of the people of shirk. And this explains what the meaning of al-ajam is here. Because some will say, but many of us are from the ajam, we are foreigners. This is meaning we cannot wear our clothing and our dress. No, it's intending ahl shirk, the disbelievers. And so here we take a benefit. We shouldn't be appearing in a manner which is not in accordance to Islamic dress. And the Shaykh then gives a point here, which is that even when it comes to clothing, there are rules and regulations. And he mentions the Shaykh in this point, Shaykh Al-Uthaymin rahimahullah, in his commentary, of the growing trend at that time of women being fooled by the fashion industry and excessively wanting new clothing. It means every time they go to the market, the mall, they find something new, they want to buy it. And they want to keep buying until they tire out the husbands, going to the mall, buying something new and buying something new. And this is because people, they always want the newest fashion, something new. They say this is this season and that's the last season. And this is this year and that's last year. And so here we take the benefit that al-bada'atu min al-iman means that wearing clothes that are old is from iman. You shouldn't be excessive, always buying new clothing. And even the non-Muslims have admitted that this is actually harming the environment. All of this excessive clothing and making new clothing because people need more. Because we keep buying new and we throw it in our closet and we dump it and then no one wants it. And so we take a benefit that even Islam is coming to curb us from this consumerism and materialism. Whereas the non-Muslims, they're just now reacting, whereas Islam has already taught us about that, to be balanced. Ilbis ma shit, wear whatever you want. It's halal as long as it's halal, but we should also be balanced. That's the advice the Shaykh is giving here about a common thing that's happening in his time. So that he says, the Shaykh then, therefore, he continues Umar's narration, and roughing yourselves up means you have to get accustomed to difficulty. And this is perseverance and a quality that's needed, for things will not always be the way that you want it. So it's a great advice that we shouldn't be people who are only used to luxury and success. We should also be people who are accustomed to also difficulty. He says, therefore, do not become inclined towards the false civilization, for it makes the nature effeminate, and it excessively relaxes the nerves, and ties you down with ropes of false hopes. While the serious people reach their destiny, you are still in your place, over concerned about the elegance of your dress. Although many of the things are not considered muharram or makruh, they are not considered good conduct. And that's the important benefit. Just because something is not haram doesn't mean it's not befitting. Because something is not makruh doesn't mean you shouldn't still do it, or you should avoid it. So we take this benefit that the person who's in excessive luxury, who's overly concerned about his dress, he won't be able to obtain his goal. He'll be too busy and distracted by it. And he says the outside appearance is also indication of the person's affiliation. Rather, it defines him, and after all, is dress not one of many ways of expressing yourself? So be careful in what you wear, because it expresses to others your standing in what you are affiliated to, your upbringing, your taste. It was due to this that it was said the outside appearance leads to the inner inclination. And this is what something Ibn Qayyim also mentions, rahimahullah, that was something you wear on the outside, it will also affect that what's in the inside. And for those reasons, you see that certain things were made impermissible to wear out of fear of what it can do. Means, for example, someone wearing gold, or for the man, or silk, then it may lead the person to feeling arrogant, where Allah permitted for others. So we take a benefit from that. The outside can affect the inside. And this is something which, if you think carefully, you say, subhanAllah, it's true. Someone wears something, he feels a certain way. And so for those reasons, we should always wear clothing that's befitting. And the Shaykh's advice is to be moderate. He gives the advice to be moderate. So he gives some examples here. There's Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, it's narrated that he said, it is more beloved to me to see the learned person, means the Qari, the one who reads the Quran and recites it, to wear white garments. That is, in order that he will be glorified in the hearts of the people. And in turn, they will glorify that which it carries of the truth. So this narration of Umar, in reality, is not authentic, it's a broken chain. In Muwatta Malik, it's narrated. Shaykh Salim says da'if and Muwatta, but nonetheless, the hadith of the Messenger ﷺ that he encourages to wear white. So wearing white is the best of clothes, and with clothes we shower our dead with. So that's an example of something someone should wear, wearing the thiyab, which is white. This is sunnah. And he mentions here, you also should wear clothes that shows your standing, that's dignity and sensibility, or at the very least shows you to be a shaykh or a person of worship. It means if someone wears something that can dictate that, then that's what people do. They wear clothing to dictate what they are in society. And Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said, like the flocks of birds naturally disposed to imitating one another. Means, like we say in English, birds of feather flock together. Means whatever you wear, you resemble with someone else. What they're wearing, you all become like one group. So beware of dressing in a juvenile fashion. As for the European dress, and the ruling of such does not escape you. Means the Shaykh is talking about the clothing which is specified by the non-Muslims, the clothing that they wear. It's not befitting that the Muslim may wear this. And of course, that doesn't mean that it's absolute. There are rules and regulations of what clothing is permissible, which is not. But that clothes which is specific to them, it's not permissible for the Muslim to wear. Or clothing which is against the rules of Islam, means clothing which the Rasul ﷺ, he warned us from, what he labeled the clothing of the disbelievers. There is such a thing. However, this does not mean that you dress in an unattractive manner. You should shroud with a pious conduct and good manners. And the proofs for that are many, found in the book Al-Jami' of Khatib al-Baghdadi rahimahullah. When the Talib, the dress and the way he should appear has been dictated and been narrated. And the salah point should not be dismissed, because even now the people of knowledge still point out such things in the books pertaining to softening the heart, and the books of etiquette and the books of dress. Means that if you look at the books of etiquette, you find they teach you what kind of clothing is befitting the person of knowledge, what kind of clothing is un-Islamic, what kind of clothing is permissible, what is not. And so he would take a benefit that the person who's seeking knowledge is dressed in a way that is befitting that knowledge. And that's why, because the person, by doing this, he will not only be faithful to the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he will also be adherent to the way of the Salaf al-Salih, the pious predecessors, who they dressed in a manner which is in accordance with the sunnah, and that should be our guide at all times. The student of knowledge should always be looking to adhere to the way of the Quran and Sunnah, as the way the Sahaba and Salaf understood and practiced it. So yes, certain clothing can be worn, but at the very least someone should appear like a person who is adhering to the path of knowledge. You shouldn't wear something which, if someone would be hard to detect, that this person is a person of knowledge. And it's become now common in our society where people they advocate that there is no such a clothing, Islamic clothing. You wear whatever you wish. And while this is true to a certain degree, that there are certain clothes which are shared, the student of knowledge still has a particular standing, that he shouldn't be wearing clothes which do not distinguish him from others in terms of being upon khair. And so a person of religion should dress in that manner and should not fear to be dressed in this manner. The same way that the non-Muslims they dress in their clothing and their manner, and they do not fear that everyone who dresses in accordance with that which he believes to be correct and that which he believes to be upon his way. Inshallah, we'll end with this much, which is the end of the first chapter. With the author, then he moves on to the second part of the book, where he starts discussing the etiquette of the student of knowledge and his methodology of seeking knowledge. Before that, he also advises a few other things, which we'll take next week, inshallah. If any questions or points, otherwise we'll end with this.
What's the guide or the tool that we can distinguish what is appropriate in our time, place for students of knowledge, or someone generally wants to have good muru'ah?
So what can we use as a measuring stick for good muru'ah is that qualities which, if someone he were to do it in this society, no one will look down upon him. It means it's not something strange, not something someone will point a finger at and say this is not befitting. So at the very least, we'll take a look and see we should always be in the best qualities and best behavior. But anything that which people could criticize you for, you avoid it. This is the best way. Because sometimes we don't see it to be something of an issue. But people take knowledge from someone, then they'll say, but he does this and this. And so if it can become something of a criticism or a point in the future, it should best avoid. Because at the very least, the person should always be in good standing in the eyes of the community. طيب إن شاء الله, we'll end with this much. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.